Hi, boys and girls. I'm back with another Passover story called The Best Four Questions by Rochelle Burke. And the youngest person at the Seder always gets to ask the four questions, and that was me when I was a little girl. Passover is almost here, said Marcy excitedly. Yes, Daddy said, so let's clean up these breadcrumbs, and tomorrow night, Marcy, it will be your turn to ask the four questions at the Seder. Hey, that's my job, said Jake. The youngest person at the Seder gets to ask the four questions, Jake, said Daddy. Now that's Marcy's learned to read, it's her turn to ask them. She'll mess it up, grumbled Jake. Marcy remembered her brother asking the four questions at the Seder last year. The grown-ups all said that they were proud of him. Marcy was sure she could do a great job with the four questions. After all, she knew a lot about questions. She asked them all the time, like, why does that man have hair in his ears? How can I have a pet elephant? Are we there yet? Asking four questions on Passover would be easy, thought Marcy, and hers would be the best ones ever. I'll help you learn them, said her mother, but Marcy didn't want help. Can't I do it by myself, she asked. That's one question already, Marcy grinned, and she skipped off out of her room. A little while later, Marcy called, should I wear my ruffled dress or the one with polka dots? Will Aunt Jessica be there? Can I bring my hamster? Do I need a sweater? Enough questions, said her mother. It's time to get ready for the Seder. But Marcy was getting ready. Can't you see I'm working on my questions, she said. At Grandma and Poppy's house, Marcy thought of more questions. Is that the Seder plate? What's on it? Can I carry it to the table? Grandma handed her the beautiful Seder plate and pointed to one of the little dishes. This is the horseradish. We call it maror. And this is the harosis made with apples and nuts. And here's a bone and an egg and a sprig of parsley. You see that, boys and girls? The shank bone and the haroset and the green vegetables. Poppy sat at the head of the table with a big cushy pillow on his chair. Daddy opened his Haggadah to begin the Seder. Marcy wiggled in her seat, waiting for her big moment. Finally, it was time for the four questions. Poppy smiled. Are you ready, Marcy? How many matzo balls are in Grandma's chicken soup? Why does Uncle Benny always fall asleep during the Seder? Are worms kosher for Passover? Is horseradish made from horses? Marcy beamed and looked around the table. Her mother's mouth dropped open. Grandma scratched her head. Poppy chuckled. What kinds of questions are those? Asked Jake. You're supposed to ask the ones in the Haggadah. Well, Marcy turned as red as the Seder wine and sank into her chair. You know, said Poppy thoughtfully, I've always wondered how many matzo balls there are in Grandma's chicken soup. And I know Jake's eating habits, added Daddy. We should probably find out if worms are kosher for Passover. Everyone took turns answering Marcy's excellent questions. Worms aren't kosher anytime, said her mother. Plus, they're just plain gross. And I don't fall asleep at the Seder, huffed Uncle Benji. Though sometimes I do rest my eyes a bit. Then Poppy said, maybe Marcy would like to read the four questions from the Haggadah now. Marcy looked down at the book. There were some awfully big words. Can Jake read those with me? Asked Marcy. That's another question, Jake said, but he grinned. Then they turned to the four questions page in the Haggadah and read it together. Number 1, Why is this night different from all other nights? On other nights we eat bread or matzah. Why do we eat only matzah tonight? And question number 2. On other nights we eat all kinds of vegetables. Why do we eat maror tonight? 3. On all other nights we do not dip our foods. Why do we dip our foods twice? And 4. On the other nights we eat our meals sitting any way we like. Why do we lean on pillows tonight? When Marcy looked up from her book, everyone was smiling, and she felt really proud. Good job, said Poppy. Uncle Benji would give us the answers to the, please give us the answers to the 4 questions. But Uncle Benji was fast asleep. And boys and girls, if you want the answer to the 4 questions, well, we eat matzah to remind us that when the Jews left slavery in Egypt, they had no time for their bread to rise, and they took the dough on their journey and they baked it into flat, hard cakes or crackers called matzah. We eat maror, bitter horseradish, to remember the bitter and cruel way Pharaoh treated the Jewish people. And number 3, we dip herbs into haroset to remember how hard the Israelite slaves worked making bricks for Pharaoh. The mixture of apples, nuts, and wines look like the clay that was used to make bricks. And we also dip parsley into salt, and the salt water reminds us of the tears of the Jewish slaves. And we lean on a pillow to be comfortable, which reminds us that once we were slaves in Egypt, but now we are free. The end.